Good evening and welcome to this meeting of Scrutiny Finance Review Group. I've got a little script which I have to read out, so here we go. It is intended to live stream tonight's meeting of this Scrutiny Finance Review Group. If the live streaming is successful, a recording of the meeting will be available on the Council's website within 24 hours of the conclusion of the meeting. Members and officers, please remember to switch your microphones on and speak directly into the microphone, and to switch off again after speaking. Reporting officers using Teams, I don't know whether we have any this evening. We haven't any, that's good, we're all here. Any exempt, well, there are three private items which we'll take at the end of the meeting. The live stream will cease prior to the meeting moving into private, and there may be a short delay while that is technically achieved. So, apologies for absence.
We've received apologies from Amjad Ali, who is now being subbed by Councillor Latif.
Okay, if that's the only apology. We have minutes of the previous meeting, starting on page 9. No, it didn't. What am I doing? Leaping ahead. Page 6. Does anyone have any queries, comments? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, on page 7, the second paragraph up from the bottom, we were promised an update and a refresh on the Green Book. I haven't seen it. Maybe I've missed it.
I've had that conversation with Dev a few minutes ago, and he's quite convinced that he did send it. He's not sure exactly where he sent it, but in the event, I haven't seen it either. I don't think any of us has. Dev is going to investigate that situation tomorrow morning.
Thank you. I found that rather disappointing, I have to say.
But apart from that, are the minutes acceptable? Can I sign them? There seems to be no dissent, so I'll do that. Thank you. Moving on then to disclosures of interest. You know the rules as well as I do. If you have a declarable interest, either declare it now or as the item comes up on the agenda, please. I don't believe we have any urgent business or references from other bodies. No? That's good. So we move straight. I don't have any announcements to make at this stage. We move straight on to reports. Then item 8. Dev, do you have any updates to give us?
Yeah, so Chair, if I may take item 8 and 10, because the same is about finance update and quarterly finance report. So as I've mentioned earlier, the report has been dispatched today. So it's going to executive. So I think if we log on the CMIS, the report is there. But what I will do, I will give you an update of where we are in terms of the quarter 2. And I did brief FRG last time that the spend in the demand-led services has increased, especially in adult social care, significantly. So right now, the position which is going to executive, which will be presented on the 2nd of December, has got a net overspend of 7.3 million. Because the core overspend, which is before applying any contingency and corporate upside, is around 13.5 million. And that's a significant overspend in terms of over the last 6-7 months, and the main area is adult social care. And I think a lot of councils are experiencing that significant increase in social care. The homelessness and the other area in terms of supported living are within the range. and the council is on course of delivering roughly the 5 million of deficit recovery plan. So the deficit recovery plan is working, but what is the challenge now is the additional pressures in those areas are not sort of abating. Yeah. So we are discussing very much how we are going to look at the revised business plan, not business plan, sorry, I'm still on the revised deficit recovery plan, because the deficit, the more we tackle the deficit this year, the less is going to impact in 25-26 budget. But this is something it's been experienced across. So the rest of the budget, by and large, it balances itself, but the homelessness, special educational need, transport, adult social care, significant budget pressure. Now, my understanding is, we discussed that this morning, it's starting to stabilize. Whether that pressure will carry on remain to be seen. Yeah, but social care is an area. People are getting older, the aging population, complex need, the costs as well. So it's an area government as well is coming with especially in children. Government has said they will start to see how they can try to influence the private sector. Some of the private sector, they're charging quite a significant amount. So some of a placement for children might cost 250,000 per year or even more. So the cost is going up. But council is also looking at ways, like we've got a children's center which we are trying to build ourselves, and this will be something. Adult social care as well. We procured a couple of houses which we are using that for adult social care. So it is challenging. And it seems like this year, if we don't close that gap, the first year where after 10 years I have been sort of in this council, that we might have to use reserve to balance the budget. A lot of council have already been using reserves. Okay, we haven't. We have been quite prudent. We have been, even despite COVID as well, we balanced the budget without recourse to reserves. So our reserves has remained stable. We haven't used reserves, but the pressure is so much and it's coming a bit late in the process in terms of the forecast. So we may have to use reserves, but we are doing everything to see how much we can control the spend and look at other projects where capital program so we are looking at that. And in fact, there was a couple of several meetings happening. So that's where we are, Chair, and that report has been dispatched today. So if you go on the CMIS, it's there. The other thing I did promise, which I'll be talking a little bit about sort of transformation. So you will see there's quite a detailed paragraph on transformation, but that's another area where we are trying to put more effort and to deliver, because right now it is important here, you have to deliver at scale and at pace. And that's the bit you will see following from the FRG meeting last time. We said will be, so that report is discussing. So we've got areas where it's still showing amber and red because where we are in the process, but when it comes to executive, I think, but if you look at the report, I'll be bringing that executive report back to FRG. It's unfortunate that there's no meeting in December, but that report is already in the public domain. So if members would like to ask any questions, once the report goes to executive, I'm quite happy to take members through. So those are the two key things which I would say. But the main one is the core and the potential use of reserves, but we're doing everything so that we can manage that situation.
Thank you for that. Questions? Yes, got David Wynne first, and then...
Yes, two things. One's a statement and one's a question. The statement first. I understand how difficult things are and that there's the big deficit. As a councillor, I'm disappointed, to say the least, that a video was put out to all council officers about the situation on the deficit at the end of Q2, but it wasn't even mentioned in our weekly updates as councillors, and I think that was deplorable. That's the statement. The question is, how are we actually getting on with trying to make the targeted savings, Deb? Because it seems to me every time I look at the accounts, we're falling further behind on the savings. So you call it transformation plan, cost reductions as far as I'm concerned, and we seem to be falling further behind every time I see a set of accounts. Can you please give me an update on that?
So as I said, the report is in front of me and it's on the council website. It was dispatched, Angela dispatched it. So there's two types of, you're absolutely right. We try to differentiate between what we call the deficit recovery plan, means the budget pressure, which was recorded last year as well. So in terms of the deficit recovery plan, we are more or less on target. So the budget, when we approved the deficit recovery plan, was 5.2. The latest forecast is saying we'll deliver 4.8. So that's what, there's a paragraph there. Now, there might be the areas we're delivering more, we are delivering less, but even take the 5 million, we're delivering. But the point you're making here, on top of that, we have to address further budget pressures for this thing, and that's what will be a bit called by even, because there's more pressures coming. And that is a paragraph there you will see on paragraph 24 to 25, and the point you made and the point you made last time is right now at this stage, because the delivery will have to start soon, and it's still showing amber and red, most of them are amber, there's one red, and that's what you will see. My comments there is we've got to put more effort in to start to turn those into delivery plan in green. So at this stage, are those everything green? Answer is no. All of them was except of one. So there's a paragraph there in terms of the amount being spent and what is being delivered so far. So there are some concerns there, but as I said, I take your point. Yeah, we have to double our effort in order to realize those transformation savings. So going forward, what will happen, you will see the report says, because we had a target of 5 million, we are delivering more or less 5 million, but because of the budget pressures now, this year, that deficit recovery plan probably more than doubled. So that's what, as officers, we're looking at, the additional budget pressures which has been experienced this year. How are we going to address those within this year, and how much? Can we close the whole deficit this year? Answer is no, because it's just the budget pressure is there. But can we do enough in order to put it in a better place to address those in 25, 26? That's what we're aiming at. Yeah, and that's what the budget report will deal with. And it's not easy. You'll see there's another council who's just, in fact, Councillor, I was not, but Councillor Rose shared with me. Is it Hampshire? Yeah, they are. Yeah. So it's not something. Yeah, but it's difficult. It's difficult. It's not. So if you say, I think I did a presentation to all policy groups, so I will be doing another presentation to policy group about the budget. So we've got the government autumn budget. So I'm updating that. So we have a view of where we are right now. So I did mention to Councillor Frank and your group as well, if you have to do that budget presentation. So we can do that before the budget goes to the executive. So at this stage, there has been more money coming from central government, but the question here is whether that is enough to deal with all the budget pressures. Yeah, because that's just a national living wage is averaging the rate of 6-7%. So yeah, it's yeah, it is a challenge. Of course, it's a challenge. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dave, you completely understand it is a challenging environment and running the council is not easy. And of course, as councillors and as a council, we have to make difficult decisions. And my understanding is that the cumulative build-up of deficit and plus the pressure, the gap is around £13 million. Now, that's a lot of money. My question is that obviously things are being left and they're not going to resolve on their own. And I'm sure you might have discussed or recommended projects. What I want to know, how far are you in implementing those and making those tough decisions? And if you are going to make those tough decisions, we'd like to know what they are going to be. So at least we can have a view, and we might have an alternative view to it as well.
Yeah, so coming back, when we approved the budget in February, as I said, there was a deficit recovery plan. So it was around 10 million at that time. So we said we try to recover this over 2 years, and that's what we put around 5 million and 4 million. So we say, you can't just turn around 10 million. Right? So we had a plan, and that plan for the first phase of the deficit recovery plan of 5 million is working. And you will see in the report. The next 4 million, which we are going to recover in 25-26, there was a plan, but what happened is we've got taken over by even because the pressure is not going away. And cost of living crisis, there's people who are losing their home, and there's more home which will have. The supported living, where there is a big budget pressure, and that's even government has acknowledged that it's a budget pressure. So we've got transport. So those budget pressures, especially, are not going away. So the plan was, if we start to come out of recession, or if interest rate will come down, economy will start to perform better, people will get more jobs, better paid jobs, maybe will, but those pressures are not going. In fact, if you look at interest rate, Bank of England might be thinking whether they will do a further 25 basis point cut or not. It's in the balance. Inflation was 1.7 in September, right now is above 2%. So I think those pressures plus the geopolitical factors which is happening across the world, this is causing not a stable situation. So coming back to your point, absolutely right, we had a plan, and the plan was to deal with the deficit over 2 years. I think first year we are delivering, but the budget pressure is not going away. So what happened, we got a plan to deal with the deficit, but now the deficit is being wider. So now we have to revisit our plan, and that's what we're looking at. In fact, we're having discussion with the chief exec is leading on that. It's okay, how we are going to develop our plan now. So, yeah.
To follow up, Dave, yeah, no, completely understandable. And my mind goes back when we were faced with £170 million budget deficit, and we had to make even tougher and bigger decisions, and including airport expansion. We looked at innovation, we looked at investor growth, we looked at recommissioning, and we looked at cutting services. I mean, £13 million compared to 170 million is a small drop in the ocean. What I'm trying to struggle to find is how is it that we haven't come to any sensible options, and why is it being left? Because central government has clearly said they haven't got money to give, and it's a challenge that which has to be tackled. And you know what I want to know: what proposals have we got? And the budget pressure is not going to go away. It's probably going to add on more unless we get the grips of it.
So that fair point, fair challenge. I think the only thing what I would say, when we started the 170 million, that was a higher base. So when you take 170 million already, then you're getting to the bottom of the barrel. So when at that time we took 170 million, absolutely right. But the more you take out of the budget, it's become more difficult. So yes, when we had that plan, we had unsupported accommodation, which are looking at reducing. There was cost in terms of children placement. These are difficult decisions. That is delivering 1.1. We've got in terms of income, in terms of looking at BNB and 90-let. You will see report came to executive acquiring properties, and there was further report will be coming. So we're trying to acquire properties rather than having expensive accommodation, BNB and 90-let. So those are those things happening. There will be another report coming to executive. So we're doing those difficult. The adult social care purchase care model has delivered a reduction of 1.35. So when you see the report, these are areas which are demand-led. These are frontline services. So when you look at those decisions that we make, but it's just, we wish we start to grow, have more jobs and interest rate come down and everything. But the economic environment, the global environment is not conducive. And the point you made here, yeah, we've got some additional funding from central government, which is welcome. But is it enough to cover all the budget pressures? The answer is no. The point you made here, whether we take some difficult decision, absolutely. There will be decision which we'll have to make. But 3 or 4 years, the settlement, we haven't had a 3-year settlement. It was not easy to plan. So every year it was a 1-year settlement. So we don't know how much more money will be into the system. So planning over the 3-4 years has not been easy. And at some point was at last minute, like last time when we were preparing the budget, there was last minute where there was additional money which was provided. So now, hopefully, if we got a 3-year spending review, at least we know where we are, and that spending review is very much welcome. And there will be a policy statement coming from central government, maybe this week or next week, and that will lay out how council tax will be. So whether there will be a 3% or 5%, every year we have to wait to see what is the council tax referendum. So planning in this uncertain situation and events. But right now the financial settlement has been announced, the spending review, but the final settlement will come out on the 19th of December. So it will be just Christmas working to fine-tune whatever will come out. So I think my view is going forward, if you've got a 3-year spending review, whether it's less money, how much less, or more money, how much more, that will give at least a 3-year planning. Yeah. Sometimes you can go and make some very difficult decisions, and suddenly, sometimes last minute, you get a couple of million or 3 or 4 million more. And that has been a bit the way the finance settlement has worked, but hopefully now we have a policy statement coming, a 3-year spending review in 26-27, that will give us much more certainty of the council to say, now we know 3 years, let's plan for 3 years. Yeah.
Lastly, obviously in the peer review, adult social care was another area which was identified that where things could have been done differently. And even now with ICS, things are much more integrated. And I feel that maybe perhaps we're looking inwards where we could be looking outwards and looking at how do we make the partnership work and how could we start challenging some of those partners for additional resource, because I know that the ICS, the BLMK, have had significant amount of money come their way, not necessarily probably ring fence for adult social care, but it doesn't mean that the money cannot be redistributed, because it's all about identifying meeting local needs. And this is where I feel that perhaps we're not really looking at things in a different way, because if we don't do that, if we're just looking at numbers and money within our own budget, it might not be enough to go around. You're quite right, but I think it's about looking at doing things differently.
So that's a couple of, I will take this point and take it to the service, but what I know is, I think probably there's a Section 75 agreement, which the ICB, which is very good. We've already agreed how we share the cost of social care, how much the ICB will pick up, so that is in place. Whether there are specific cases where maybe ICB can pay more or less, those are things, I know discussion is taking place, so we even the chief exec is looking at those as well, but the discussion is taking place. But this is very service related. I will take that and ask for a written response. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Abbas.
Thank you, Chair. Dev, I think you may have answered this already, but what I was going to ask is about the additional money that's been announced by government. I think some of it's linked to devolution, so I don't know what's going to happen there, but certainly there's been announcements around additional money for adult social care, education. Even recently, a few days ago, we had the bus and £1 billion for buses. How's that going to help the 13 million deficit you've got there? And then also, I just wanted to ask you what our current reserves position is at the moment.
Okay, so what has been announced in the budget is the 1.2 billion, and that's everybody talks about social care 1.2. So 1.2, 1.3, I think it's 600 million and 700 million. Now those for the council equates to around 5 million roughly. Now the 600 million is based on the adult social care formula. So we know more or less the 700 million is based on, there will be a combination which we don't know yet, but based on needs and based on our tax base. Because when you put precept, because our tax base, which will be going in a report later, our tax base is not as high as some authorities where they've got a high tax base. So when we put 1% precept, we get less in terms of yield, that's compared to, let's say, Central Bedfordshire or Milton Keynes, they've got high tax base. So government to equate that, they will use a combination of what we call what is the need in terms of social care, so deprivation, and they will use about the tax base. So that 700 million, we think potentially we'll get 3 million. So that's 5 million is additional which we're putting in the budget. So coming back to the point, yes, that will help, but on the other hand, we've got national living wage. We've got increase in national living wage. For the council itself, will cost around 5 million. Then providers will have to pay the additional national living wage. Then you've got the employers' national insurance. Although as a council will be reimbursed, we still need to know how the mechanism is going to work, but it is welcome that council will be get reimbursed for the employers' national insurance. But then the providers will have to pay that additional national insurance employers. So the cost when you put national living wage and employers NI, and then you put the increase in demographic changes, that additional budget and grant which we've received plus council tax, that won't be enough to close that gap. And that's what we are working on to say the other things which you're looking at, how you're going to close that gap. And there's other areas we're looking at in terms of our collection fund, how our collection is doing, with our capital program. So there's a lot of things which is happening and to see. But the aim is to try to have a balanced budget. That everybody's aim is to have. Whether we will have to look at more areas where to look at. So coming back, if there is a decision, that decision absolutely, coming to your point, will. If there are some decisions which require statutory consultations, we'll go through a proper process. Yeah, so everybody will be informed. In terms of the reserves, I always say there's two things. I think probably you'll get bored for me repeating that, is you can use reserves only once. So you can't use reserves to fund an ongoing gap in your budget. Second, if you use reserves, you have to have a plan to replenish those reserves. Third point, when we look a council like ours, we are, in terms of commercial income, the amount of commercial income we generate, we are just next to Westminster. So we are second in UK in terms of the income we generate. So when you've got a generation of income that much, you need to have a level of reserves, which is seen in terms of COVID. We managed to survive COVID. Yeah. So we had planned, Lal had the reserves which they had to use. We had the reserves, we had to get some capitalization direction, so we managed. So but you have to rebuild that reserves in order to make sure we have. But there are certain reserves which we are looking at, but our reserves, if you look at the general fund reserve, is just, we've got 14 million, 1.4. So it's not, yeah. But we've got other reserves which we can look at, and that's we were discussing, and discussion with a portfolio holder as well. So, but there's a lot of things we have to look at. It's council budget is quite complex. Yeah. So we've got. If you look at the budget which was approved in February, there's a table, the appendix C or D. It gives all the reserves. But the reserves like school reserves. So you look at total. You've got school reserves. You've got reserves like Invest to Save, which we put in project like transformation, but we expect a return back. So there are reserves where are specific. There is capital program reserve because you've got the big capital program, and if there is an overspend or time, we have to. So, yeah, is it easy? No.
Thank you. I'm going to put you on the spot a bit, Dev. As our Section 151 officer, how confident are you that we will achieve a balanced budget by the end of this financial year?
You really put me on the spot here. If you look at my report, the last recommendation clearly says that it's more likely that we will have to dip into reserves this year. So it's there. Yeah, it's just Q1, we are reporting, I think, around 2 to 3 million. That's always, okay, order of magnitude when we talk about the council budget, 500 million plus, a couple of millions, yeah, you can find things, yeah. It's getting more difficult, coming back to your point of the 170 million of savings, finding a couple of million back of the sofa is not that easy. But by and large, with the big budget, they are upside, yeah. But of the Q2, when we've got a big sort of, and it's demand-led. You look at it, it's demand-led. Yeah. There's nothing which you say the council didn't control this or didn't control that, or, yeah, it's demand-led. Yeah. So the demand-led one is causing a lot of council. So And that's what, when we got the 13 million in core, the bottom line 7 million between November and December, we are doing everything. We are doing everything as officers. But to be realistic, it's there. It's there, it says, it's more likely that this year, 10 years I have been here, I have not touched reserves. On the contrary, I have put some money in reserves. But it's come a point that yeah. But how we deal with that going forward and to see how we can stabilize that so that we don't use it, that's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Well, thank you, Dev.
Anybody else? In which case, I would suggest that we thank Dev for his comments and that we've noted them. Nothing else. Okay, I think we move on to setting the council tax base. Largely an administrative process. I guess about the only variable that's available to the council is the collection rate, which is proposed to be set at, is it 96.5%? Have I got that right? Can't see the figure now. Yep. Thank you. So, has anybody got any comments, questions? Hang on a second. Dev's got his hand up. He obviously has something he wants to add to the written report.
Deb Fenson, she's on annual leave. She's on holiday. So that's why I will just quickly present it, if I may. Yeah. I think the area which we'll look at is paragraph 10. The tax base for 25-26 has gone up by 1,100. Yeah, there's a table, which is good. We used to, at some point, didn't have that many, about 4 or 5 years ago. But this means the council, despite the constraints of the land, we're still building. Yeah, but then you will see in paragraph 13, that's the point you make, Chair, is what has increased the tax base is about the collection rate, but at the same time, you will see just above paragraph 13 is the executive has agreed in 2019 that the introduction of 300 premium on council tax. So government has allowed you charge for a second home, and that's what this tax base has reflected in. Yeah.
Okay, anybody? David.
Yes, just pointing for a moment to, it's page 11 in our main papers, point 11. Effectively, how are we going to fix this issue with people that are moving on to universal credit as claimants, actually getting the position clear in terms of housing, council tax reductions and so on? The implication, Dev, of the report at section 11 is that we've still got a bit of an unknown quantity. Is that the case?
So universal credit is being rolled out. So yeah, so we are working closely with DWP, but sometimes we don't have all the detail. But the way we do that is when they move on universal credit, the point you made, the council tax reduction scheme, we have to administer that. Yeah. So in the tax base, we make an estimate of how much potentially that council tax reduction scheme. I think it's around 12 or 13 million, a significant amount of money. So we'll manage that. We'll inform people when they're moving on universal credit, and at the same time is an entitlement. Some residents, they don't know that once they move on universal credit, if they're entitled to council tax reduction scheme, they will. Plus, on top of that, we've got a pot of money which is called hardship fund. Yeah. So we did set aside, I think in the region, if my memory is something like 400, 500,000. So people, if are struggling, then there's council tax reduction scheme, there's hardship fund, and there is additional pot of money which we can use to help people with the housing costs as well. So there is some pot of money. It's just we do advertise on our website to say people, if they're struggling, come and discuss with the council, and officers will help. So we have. So the other thing which have been extended is about the household support. Then there's pot of money where residents can apply, and sometimes it's just about them ringing us if they're struggling, and officers will support.
So is the report that we're looking at using your best guess, your team's best guess at what the position really is?
The question, absolutely. If you asked me 6 months ago, everybody was thinking interest rate will start to tumble. But right now, Bank of England is saying, inflation might. So now we don't know in terms of the economy, in terms of what is happening, the geopolitical factors. So we use our best guess. Yeah. So it's if I wish I can predict, I will be rather working in the city and making more money. Yeah.
Councillor Aslam Khan.
Dave, the report talks about one of the risks that if the council tax reduction scheme caseload is likely to increase, and then the expenditure will worsen. Also talks about the universal credit changes if possible, and one of the solution it talks about is proactive welfare support and the household support schemes to mitigate the risk. Are we saying that we don't do that currently? I mean, how could we assist or help when we don't know who to support proactively? Because those are unknowns, aren't they?
So those advertise. When we send the council tax leaflet, we advertise. We say if it's on our website, those pot has been available over so many years. So if members would like to know what are those schemes available, I can ask my benefits department to inform the council tax. But as I said, those are pot available. The council tax reduction scheme is driven by legislation. So you're entitled, there's things like single person discount. If you're entitled, you apply, you will get it. As I said, there are discretionary scheme, there's household support fund, so those are available. So if you want a specific, I can ask the department to send the link where those additional information. But then we can run another campaign, the customer services they do. When people approach, we do guide them to say, hey, the things which you can apply for. So we do. It's the same thing like sometimes you see people pension credit, not everybody. Yeah. So it's about whether we can do more in terms of educating and making people aware of those. Yeah, maybe we can do more, but there's enough information there where to inform people about what help is available.
Those links would be useful, but what I was trying to indicate, isn't there any kind of a system which will identify people who are not getting the right level of support? So for me, proactive support would be identifying for those people who are not on the right benefits, and then we can proactively say to them and call them in or talk to them and say, you haven't claimed for this, or you need to do X, Y, and Z. Is there anything like that? I mean, I'm just curious.
Yeah, we do that. Like coming back to the point, when we are universal credit being rolled out, so we try to identify it. We've got a program which you use called Policy and Practice, which you subscribe, and Policy and Practice will say where are those cohorts which will be affected. So we do that proactive management. We also, when somebody is struggling to pay, then they contact, so we help them to say, have you applied for that? Have you applied for that? And then we help them to have a sort of repayment facility as well. So we do that. But coming back and speaks to your point, proactive, yes, we do. We use Policy and Practice. They identified those who are going to be affected when they're rolling into universal credit or otherwise. So we do that. Can we do more? Probably we can, but we got systems and processes in place to provide that support and help.
I know that those cases which I've referred to, you've been very good and you supported, so thank you for those. But it's just
You're
that
welcome.
I'm concerned those people who either don't approach their counsellors or don't know how. We do have a lot of those elderly residents, unfortunately, who are not aware and perhaps don't go and see their counsellors and they're struggling. So if there's any way of attending those, identifying those people at risk, I think it would be really useful.
And just to add, is Councillor Ross is very much in favour of working very closely with CAB, and that's something we don't give advice on. So we work closely with CAB as well, and then. But you're absolutely right. If like in your surgery, you will find people coming directly to you. Just anytime members do send me emails, I'll forward and we'll deal with that. But is people are struggling, there is help. and sometimes they don't know there is help. And we do go out of our way to support as much as I can. Yeah.
Councillor Abbas.
Thank you, Chair. Dev, I was going to ask you, I'm amazed that we've got houses that have been empty for 10 years. I just wondered how many there were, just to give us an idea of numbers, and what, if anything, we could do with them, because surely could we not use compulsory purchase orders to buy them and actually use them to deal with our housing register?
I think I've got that information. I think Councillor Javed asked me once, so I can forward you that information. Now, I will come back on the specific property, yeah? So CPO, yes, absolutely, can be used CPO, but I don't want to go into technical. I know a reason why they say sometimes it's not, but let me get a more detailed information and say why some of the properties is for 10 years, why we can't CPO them. Yeah.
Thank you. If you could provide that information, and maybe you can share it with the whole group, that would be good. The other thing, I mean, you're looking at a collection rate of 96.5. I just want to know that's quite critical for you setting the budget, because obviously that gives you something to work with. What has it been in previous years? I mean, how far have we done well? Have we done well in previous years, or how much of an extra increase is this?
Yeah, so you will see some councils, they collect even 98, 99%, but those are very affluent. Yeah, we're not an affluent area. So our collection rate compared with neighboring authorities has been reasonable, so we do collect compared with statistical neighbors. You will see we've increased that 0.5 because we've put some additional resources in the council tax, business rates, and benefits. So that additional resources has got the challenge to try to generate more in terms of collection. So, and that's why we put 0.5. We'll have to monitor that. Yeah. So over the years, you will see over the last two budgets, I think we've increased 0.5. So we are coming to that pre-COVID level, but is it going to be something we have to monitor closely? Absolutely, yes. Because if the economy starts to improve and interest rates start to come down and there's more stability, then yeah. But if things doesn't improve, then it will be a challenge. But we'll have to monitor that. We do monitor that on a quarterly basis. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got a sort of semi-question and a comment at the same time. So firstly, in terms of the question, how are we pursuing our debt collection when it comes to council tax? Purely because at the moment there is a lot of negative publicity around councils' approaches to collecting debt from people, especially when it comes to council tax. There's a lot going around that it's very aggressive, it's not ethical, all of those sorts of things. So what are we going to do, maybe perhaps slightly differently to what other councils are doing, so that we don't get any more negative publicity? Because as it is, Luton is not quite the highlight of many people's days, and it's not an attractive place for a lot of people. So the last thing we want is bad publicity for Luton.
So one of the things is if I may put the context, whatever we collect in council tax pays for the services, so adult social care, children and everything. We don't collect the council tax, it creates. So we have to collect. The process of debt is very much sort of system driven in terms of legislation. So you will have to, if somebody is not making arrangements, then you have to send summons and things like that. But what I can reassure you that we do write. So that's what we have to. I would advise. My advice will be, if somebody will get a reminder, second reminder, contact the council. Because if you don't contact the council, then automatically we are duty bound by the legislation to send you summons, and then. Okay. So what I would suggest is when you're discussing with your constituents to say if they are struggling, even before they get the first reminder, because it's very much legislation. First reminder, second reminder, summons and court and enforcement. You don't want to be there. Yeah. So even if somebody is struggling, discuss the council. We always make arrangements. We always look at people's sort of circumstances, and we do. The other thing which we do is we look at we use sort of Equifax to do a credit check to say those who can pay and those who won't pay. Yeah. So we try to do that because at the end of the day, we've got, as councillors mentioned, Abbas, is we are putting 96.5. If we don't recover 96.5, to create another gap in our budget. But one thing I would say is and those members who've written to me, and you will see your constituent will go back and say they managed to get a good outcome and they managed to make arrangement for payment. So the first thing is when you're dealing with your constituent, first say, the very first time they struggle, because council tax is a debt which is a priority debt. So one thing I would say. And the other thing which I would say, we don't try to just send summons and enforcement when somebody can't afford to pay, putting more debt, that doesn't help. So we do look at it, and we do, yeah. In terms of our enforcement, we've got our own internal team. Yeah, so it's a council team which does that. So we do, yeah, we don't just mechanically just enforce. So we do help. But one thing, again, I would say, the sooner the better, then we can. Once you reach first letter, second letter, and seventh, so you've already cost on your council members. So we do support as much as we can, yeah.
Rob, were you indicating you'd like to come in?
Yeah, thank you. There's a couple of things I just want to say for Aslam, really. First, if you speak to Nikki Middleton, she's doing some great work on income maximisation, financial resilience, and the money she's identified for people by maximising their income through benefits. If you make an appointment with Nikki, I think you'll be happy. And there's the Luton Supporting You link. I don't know if you've seen that, where it gives you identifies areas as well. So I think if you have a word with Nikki, I think it will help you, sort of see what, they are doing a lot of stuff there. In relation to your point there, Yaron, strangely enough today, I was with the Citizens Advice Bureau, and they were complimenting Dev's team on their debt collecting. They were complimenting them, saying that basically when they go to Citizens Advice, they get the debt advice, they go back, and it's accepted by the council. They work very, very closely with the council, the Luton Citizens Advice Bureau, and we have got issues with other departments, I will say, but with the Dev's team, they've got a great working relationship with them through the debt advice and recovering arrears. And they even would call off, once they've been to the Citizens Advice Bureau, the council colleagues will call off bailiffs. As long as they've gone to the Citizens Advice Bureau, getting debt advice, everything will stop until the debt advice has come in. And they said they've got a great relationship with Dev's team. I just want to let you know that, Yaron.
Can I just add something? As the managing director of LAL is here, LAL support the credit union where people can get loan. So if you can say a couple of words on that, Nick.
Excuse me, off the top of my head, I can't remember.
So I think there was additional funding where, you know what they call it? The credit union, I think they call it, where they can provide cheap loan. It's called credit union, yeah? Yeah, so I think recently LAL provided support to that credit union. It was advertised and everything, I think about 6 months ago, to everybody, just to help residents. Sometimes people get loan, what they call, between inverted commas, loan sharks, where they will charge, yeah. But that's why LAL is supporting credit union, and they came and they are doing a tremendous job as well. So that as well is available as well. And council subsidiary company LAL has supported that credit union as well. So that is available as well. There is help there. It's just contact officers will direct you. Thank you.
Right, we're making very heavy weather of this, aren't we? I'll take Councillor Abbas, and then we have to draw this one to a conclusion.
I just wanted to echo what Councillor Roach was saying. Nikki Middleton's team, which is the Customer Services Welfare Support Team, are doing some excellent work. I've been working with them, and we've run a pilot for free school auto-enrolment. That's allowed, where we hold the data and the parents haven't necessarily applied, and we auto-enrolled them for that. And I think that small pilot allowed families to get support of about £27,000 for free school meals, plus other benefits, plus the schools benefit, because those children then become pupil premium, and the schools have then got £55,000 extra. So that's some really excellent work. Nikki's team is also working with Age Concern and doing some really fantastic work around getting pensioners to claim for pension credit. And I think she's got nearly 200 people across the town to claim for pension credit, which is, I think, equates to about £750,000 worth of benefits. So they are really doing some really, really good work to help with the cost of living, help support people who are feeling the pinch, and I just wanted to make sure councillors and this group is aware of that work.
Okay, thank you for that. Got two things to suggest to you then. First of all, I would suggest it would be helpful if we could have a report on the discounts and premiums policy and how many dwellings are in each category and what the financial effect on the council is. I would guess you probably want to do that on the current year's budget, but I don't mind which, so long as you tell us where the figures are coming from. Is everybody happy with that? It's going on to our... Yep.
Yeah.
Then we are asked to recommend executive adopt the council tax base figures. Does anyone have any objection to that? Okay, I'll take that as being unanimous decision then, in which case we move on to... Dev, do you have anything to say to us about the position with the audit dispute?
Okay, so again, that report is out now. So the audit committee, we are bringing all our 1920 to 22-23 accounts, which will be approved by the audit committee on the 3rd of December. In terms of our complaint, we have prepared everything. There's quite a significant amount of information and documents, and we'll be lodging that shortly, maybe sort of first or second week of December. Yeah. So once we've done that, then regularly I'll bring this committee and audit committee as well and update what is happening. So that will be lodged, that complete, yeah.
Okay, I don't see any hands going up for... Oh, yes, David?
Only just one simple question, Dev. Are we going to meet the SIP for 23-24 backstop date of the 28th of February next year? Are we going to meet that date?
Our external auditors are working closely with us, and they will be bringing an update report which will be presented to the audit committee. So once you get that draft, because so the CIPFA guidance on meeting the backstop at February, so that's what we're working on, and once I have received the draft report, then this is coming to the audit committee. So I'll rather wait for the draft report to come, and then
So is that a yes? We're going to meet the 28th February date? Maybe.
I think if you talk about the 23-24 backstop, how are you going to meet that? If you're saying whether the full audit completed and everything, that's what I'm saying. We are discussing with our auditors, and we'll bring that report, which will be going to the 13th of. So whether the full audit will be completed or not completed, we'll have discussion with our auditors. So that will be bringing that on the 13th of December. Yeah.
A bit unkind, and I'll still take that as a maybe, I'm afraid.
Okay, we're on to the group's work programme then. This is your opportunity if you want to add or delete anything from the future work programme. And I would remind you, if in between meetings you think something comes up that the group should be looking at, a simple email to Angela and to me would suffice, I guess. Anything on the work programme? Okay. We'll take that as an approval as it stands then. And we move on to Local Government Act to take the meeting into